Welcome to this month's webinar presented by the First Bank Center for Family-Owned Businesses. My name is Ed Hart, and I'm here in California, and along with Joe Ambrose out of St. Louis, we lead the Center for Family-Owned Businesses. On behalf of our entire leadership team, it is our pleasure to bring these webinars to you each month, along with our podcast, roundtables, peer groups, research, articles, and much more. As a fourth-generation family-owned business, we have a unique perspective when it comes to serving you, our family business friends. As we get started today, we invite you to watch this brief video from our fourth generation chairman, Michael Dierberg.
Family business is so much more than just business as usual. It takes an entirely different mindset, a different vision. You know a bright future is found in strong traditions. You see the freedom in looking further down the road. As part of the fourth generation of my family to help lead First Bank, I know we share your vision. That's why we've created the First Bank Center for Family-Owned Businesses to share our experience with monthly webinars, tailored products, tools, and education specific to family-owned businesses. Your vision is our vision. Let our experience be yours. Let's see what your future can be.
In today's webinar, we are addressing a topic that is very relevant to all of us, even those who are not in a family business. As we all know, we are in very uncertain economic times. We don't know what lies ahead or how many companies will weather whatever storms may come next. But the good news is we have an expert with us today who will teach us some profound concepts and give us some practical tools that can assist us in gaining competitive advantage. Meridith Elliott Powell is a world-renowned author, consultant, speaker, and a member of the National Speakers Hall of Fame. I've worked closely with Meridith over the past 12 years, and I can assure you that you are in for a real treat today. Meridith has decades of experience in corporate and financial services, and she comes to us today from her home in Asheville, North Carolina. Please welcome my dear friend and our coach for the next 45 minutes or so, Meridith Elliott Powell. Meridith, it's great to see you. Welcome today to the First Bank webinar. Really appreciate you making the time to be with us today.
Thanks, Ed. I am excited to be here and even more excited to talk about one of my favorite topics, turning uncertainty into opportunity. I mean, what if you believed that uncertainty always led to opportunity? Imagine if you believed that disruption didn't prevent growth in your organization, but actually propelled it. And what if you could build a team around you that not only was okay with change, but actually drove change in your organization, came to you with ideas about how to innovate and create and get over obstacles? What if they were motivated by the shifts that were happening in the marketplace? And imagine if you had a proven methodology to turn all of this uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. Well, you no longer need to imagine, because that is where we are going to focus our time today, on making that a reality, on literally giving you a plan on how to shift how you think, feel, and act around uncertainty. But more importantly, far more importantly, giving you a proven methodology for turning uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. So if you hang out till the end of this webinar, but you got to stay till the end of this webinar, I am literally going to give you a plan and a strategy. We're going to take all the guesswork of how to navigate the economy in 2023 and 2024. You do this strategy, I guarantee you it is going to put you in a position to start to control the change in the marketplace rather than allowing all of this change to control you. Sound good? All right. Now, before we dive into these strategies, before I reveal them one by one, I want to back up. I want to help you understand where I came up with these strategies, but more importantly, far more importantly, why I know these strategies work. See, a couple of years ago, long before we ever heard of COVID, long before we ever thought there would be war in Europe or really were stressed out about inflation or rising interest rates, I became obsessed with the word uncertainty, how we think about it, how we feel about it, how we react to it. And let me tell you, we don't like that word. In fact, research says you'd rather sit on this webinar and have me tell you every bad thing that is going to happen in 2023 so that you could be prepared, so that you could make a plan, rather than to tell you the truth. Nobody has any idea what the future holds. And the idea of uncertainty, the idea of unknown creates so much anxiety inside of us that it actually prevents us from reaching our full potential. It blocks the very innovation and creativity we need to turn uncertainty into opportunity. And I just started thinking about that. I thought, what if you could flip the script on that? What would happen in your business if you believed that uncertainty, even when it was negative, always led to opportunity? What if you believed that the challenges of 2023 were about to propel your business to another level? And how far could you go? How many customers could you help? What difference could you make in your industry if you literally had a plan to turn uncertainty into opportunity? And that put me on a mission. I wanted to find businesses and organizations that had actually done that, actually learned to harness uncertainty to create opportunity in their organizations. Now, I've got to tell you, there are not many companies out there like that. In fact, uncertainty remains one of the top 3 issues keeping leaders up at night. Not how to solve uncertainty, just the fear of it. And if you heard what I said just a moment ago, that very fear, that anxiety is the thing that is in the way of helping you use uncertainty to turn it into opportunity. So I wanted to find leaders who had actually learned to lead differently, use the challenges in front of them to help their business get out in front, because there is competitive advantage if you can learn to use uncertainty to propel growth in your organization. Now, again, there are not many, but in all the research, all the time that I spent trying to find these companies, I was able to uncover 9 companies that have been in business since the late 1700s, early 1900s, and they are still in business, thriving today. Now, just let that sink in a moment. Companies that have been around since the late 1700s, early 1900s, and they are still in business, thriving today. You think you have been through uncertainty? They have been through world wars. They have been through economic depression. They haven't survived 1 pandemic. They have survived 2 pandemics. And I wanted to know why. Don't you want to know why? Why do some companies make it when others just disappear? So in all the time that I spent working with these companies, fundamentally understanding what they've come through, I was able to find a formula, discover a plan, take all the guesswork out of this that I guarantee you, backed up by 250 years worth of research, companies that have been through far bigger challenges than you have ever seen. If you follow these 9 strategies, I guarantee you it is going to shift how you think, feel, and act about uncertainty. But more importantly, again, far more importantly, it is going to let you turn any uncertainty you're facing into major opportunity in your organization. Now, you're not hanging out with me all day, so I don't have the time to reveal all 9, but I'm going to give you 3 or 4 that I really feel could help your organization go to the next level. And if you hang out to the end, well, if you make good friends with Ed Hart, he's going to give you a QR code that I've got, and the QR code is going to take you to all 9 steps in the formula. It's going to take you to a copy of a video of me talking about the formula. So that's right. You don't need to sell this to your team. I'm going to sell it to your team. And I'm going to give you all the tools and worksheets, because for every step of the formula, I've got an easy way for you to execute it and implement it with your team. So you're going to want to hang out till the end of this webinar. You're going to want to get all of that information. But one last thing before we dive into these strategies. If you do not have a plan for uncertainty, if you are a leader in your organization and you are not addressing uncertainty with your team, if you don't let your team know you've got this and you believe that the uncertainty in the marketplace can actually propel your company forward, uncertainty is going to produce one emotion among all of your team members and among your customers. And that emotion is fear. And believe me, that is the emotion you do not want produced in your organization, because fear shuts down innovation and creativity. The one thing you need your team to have more of in times of uncertainty, they are going to have less of if you are not leading them through the uncertainty. It is going to shut down engagement. At a time when you need to be more productive and efficient than ever, you are going to be less productive and efficient. And as you guessed it, all of that is going to negatively impact your bottom line results. Personally, I think as leaders, uncertainty is the most important thing you need to be addressing with your team. You need to let them know you've got this, you've got a plan, and you need to share this methodology. All right. I have kept you waiting long enough. If you could give me a drum roll, please. I can hear the drum roll. I will reveal these strategies one by one. Now, again, I don't have time to get into all 9 today, but when you get the full formula, when you follow the QR code, understand you need to do all 9 of the strategies, and you need to do them in order. If you do them in order, they have a compounding effect. They build on one another. All right. Again, I have left you waiting long enough. Let's go ahead and dive in. I want to start with strategy number 1. It's the foundational piece of thriving in uncertainty. And if you want to thrive in uncertainty, if you really want to succeed in 2023 and 2024, then you need to have a relentless vision. You need to know where you are going and where you are headed, and it needs to be clearly articulated. Please note, this is not a vision. It is a relentless vision. It means that it is a vision you are so focused on that no matter the obstacle in your way, you find a way to achieve that vision. Probably one of the most important things that I found from doing this research is success is not logical. When I went back 250 years and started looking for businesses and leaders and organizations, it was amazing to me, the companies that made it, and even more amazing to me, the companies that didn't. It had nothing to do with geographic location, product that you sold, market share, or amount of resources. It came down to one thing. Did the leader have a vision that was clearly articulated, and could he or she get the entire team bought in, engaged, and excited about that vision? Getting the mindset right and helping people see where the opportunity is in the marketplace, that is your number one job if you want to lead people through uncertainty. Let me give you a quick example. Great story. It's a story about a group of kids going whitewater rafting in Northern California. Now, stay with me because I know you're thinking, what does a group of kids going whitewater rafting in Northern California have to do with thriving in uncertainty? It has a lot to do with thriving in uncertainty. So these kids had planned this trip for more than a year. And as luck would have it, about a week before they were set to go down the river, Northern California experienced torrential downpour. So much rain that the class 3 and 4 rapids became class 4 and 5 rapids, literally making the river unrunnable. And the guide suggested to these kids they not go down the river. But you know kids, they begged and they pleaded until the guide gave in. And she gave in on one condition. And that condition was that they sit through a safety talk. Now, how many of you have been whitewater rafting? I mean, think back to you sit through a safety talk. It's 15 minutes. They slap a jacket on you and they shove you down the river. This safety talk was not like that at all. These kids sat there for 3 hours while this guide talked through every single obstacle they were going to hit on the river. She talked about the downed trees, the hidden rocks, the high water. But as much time as she spent focused on all the obstacles they were going to hit, she spent twice as much time focused on the calm water, the relentless vision, where the raft needed to go. Now lean in because this is what is relevant for you. She explained it like this. She said, as you go down this river, you need to be aware of the obstacles. You need to see what you're headed into. But if I leave your eyes focused on the down trees, the hidden rocks, or the high water, your raft will be pulled there like a magnet. So as soon as I make you aware of the obstacle, I'm going to move your attention to the calm water where the raft needs to go, because your raft will be pulled there like a magnet. Now, any of you listening to this that have been on a whitewater rafting trip, you have experienced that. Your raft has been pulled to the calm water. As a leader of your company, you need to pull the raft to the calm water. 2% of our population is visionary. They can see the big picture. 12% is strategic. The rest of us are tactical. We can only see what is right in front of us. Most people get stuck in uncertainty because they're tactical thinkers. Your job as the leader is to paint the bigger picture. You know, probably one of the best examples of this is Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech. Now, I have no idea what it was like to fight for civil rights, but I imagine it was one step forward and 10 steps back. In fact, people thought at times the price was too high for what they were trying to accomplish. And at times, I'm sure they felt they would never reach their goal. But in that speech, Martin Luther King Jr. stood up and painted the picture of why people needed to keep going, of what could be possible. And that sparks the motivation that people need to keep going through the challenging times, believing there is something better on the other side. That is where you need to start. Where do you see your business a year from now? Where do you see your team? What impact will you make in the industry and the community? And you need to relentlessly focus on it and relentlessly talk about it. Your mind will find what it focuses on. And when you hit times of uncertainty, please remember, success is not logical. Focus on what you can control, and what you can control is the vision, and your mind will find a way to get there. All right. Now, before you think that I am all just Pollyanna and you paint a vision and you get through uncertainty, we are ready for strategy number 2, because once our mindset is right, we're ready to deal with the challenges in front of us, but we've got to set that mindset first. So when I started studying uncertainty, the very first place that I went was to the US military, because I thought, I don't know anybody out there who has to deal with more uncertainty than the military. I mean, they make a plan, they get all their resources in place, but how do you stay motivated when you have no idea ever really what you're walking into? And the military has this great term, and I think it is a term we all should embrace for 2023 and 2024. In fact, I was talking to a sales team in Houston, Texas last week, and the sales manager called me on Friday, and she said, everybody's walking around saying this in our office, and I can't tell you how much it has changed our attitude towards uncertainty. And the phrase is, embrace the suck. Go ahead and say it. It just feels good. Embrace the suck. The idea is that it's not the optimists and it's not the pessimists, but it's the realists that are going to navigate uncertainty successfully. Now, change can be your greatest opportunity if you see change coming. If you ignore change, change is going to bury you. I'm going to repeat that. Change can be your greatest opportunity if you see it coming. If you ignore change, change is going to bury you. Change is like a muscle, and the more you work it, the more you think about it, the more you talk about it, the more resilient you and your team are going to be for change. How many of you believe that if we came right back on this webinar this time next year, we came right back on, Ed introduced us again, everything would be exactly the same? You would have the same customers, you'd sell the same products, the market conditions would be the same. None of you believe that. So if you know that change is coming, why don't you get ready for change? Why don't you prepare for change? We call this strategy conditioning yourself for change. You got to get you and your team in shape for change, and you need to embrace the suck. Now, in the book, the company that we studied was a little company by the name of Jim Beam. Now, you've probably all heard of Jim Beam. Jim Beam may be a god to some of you, but what some of you may not know is Jim Beam was actually founded by Jacob Beam in the late 1700s, and he was an immediate success by the first barrel of corn whiskey that rolled off out of his distillery. Now, growing a whiskey company for 250 years definitely has its challenges, but none as big as his grandson, Jim Beam, had to deal with. Jim Beam had to deal with this little idea called prohibition. Now, think about the challenges that you face in your business, but imagine trying to grow a business when at any moment, the very people you vote for, you put in office in the country you live in could make what you do for a living 100% illegal. The way you feed your family, the way you take care of your employees could just go away in a moment. Now, for those of you who don't remember, prohibition was this little idea that they would outlaw the making of, the selling of, and the consuming of alcohol. Now, in fairness, nobody, including Jim Beam, ever believed that alcohol would become illegal. They just never thought the U.S. citizens would stand for that. But Jim Beam asked himself a very important question. He asked himself, what if? What would I do if the making of, the selling of, and the consuming of alcohol became illegal? So even though he didn't believe it would ever happen, he still got ready for that change. He still got prepared for that change. He started buying land in Florida and growing citrus. He invested in the mining industry. So when the unthinkable happened and prohibition became law, he was ready. Every single competitor he had, every single one declared bankruptcy. And while they were busy cleaning up the mess, Jim Beam was able to look again to the future. He had enough revenue coming in to embrace the reality in front of him, take care of his employees, take care of his family, protect and perfect his precious recipe. And while every competitor was trying to clean up the bankrupt mess they had made of their businesses and law had made of their businesses, he was able to once again look to the future and ask himself that very important question: what if? What would I do if prohibition was repealed? So he spent the years gathering investors, working on new recipes, getting ready. So when prohibition was repealed, despite the fact that he was 70 years old, he was back up and running in 120 days, well ahead of his closest competitor. Life is unfair. Business is unfair. You need to embrace the suck and make it work for you so you can weather the storm. Jim Beam was able to turn uncertainty into a competitive advantage because he conditioned himself and his team for change. Now, again, I've got a tool for you for every single step of this strategy. We're going to help you create a relentless vision, and we're going to help you condition your team for change. We use a tool for this called a skeptic, and it is nothing more than a set of words: society, competition, economics, politics, technology, industry, customers. I'll repeat it: society, competition, economics, politics, technology, industry, customers. All you do is every couple of months with your team, take 20, 30 minutes out of a team meeting and get your head out of your business and ask yourself, what changes do we see happening in society? How is competition changing? What do we see happening with technology? How's our industry changing? What are our customer expectations? And what do we need to be planning for then? And then ask yourself, after you have this great big brainstorming session, what, if any, of these changes do we need to be paying attention to now? The thing about change is predict your future. The more agile your team is, the more open they will be to any change that's going to take place in the marketplace. You know change is coming, and your competitive advantage is in making an agile team that not only understands they need to change, but they're telling you the shifts that are coming in the marketplace. All right, we're cooking with gas. We know we got to begin with that relentless vision. We have a mindset for where our business is headed, and we are going to move past the obstacles and accept the fact that success isn't logical. The more and the harder we focus on where we are headed, and the more we can help our team see that, the better chances we are going to achieve that vision, and we will ignite the creativity and the innovation of our team. Then we're going to embrace the suck. We're going to condition our team for change. We're going to accept the fact that as a leader, I got to get my team open to change. I got to get them excited about change, and I've got to make them feel they have some level of control. All right, I'm going to skip ahead to strategy number 5, but when you get the QR code, go back and learn strategy 3 and 4, because they're going to build you up to strategy 5. But I love strategy number 5, because strategy number 5 is all about how to make money in an uncertain marketplace. And I don't care what industry you're in, I don't care what obstacles you're facing, you can always make money in an uncertain environment. Always. In fact, I think your customers need you more in the face of uncertainty than they do when the economy is red hot. But you need to understand that business grows differently in the face of uncertainty. When the economy is red hot and it's really good, we pretty much just open the doors and the business rolls in. In the face of uncertainty, business needs to grow from the inside out. You can't attract new business until you understand the problems your current customers are facing. Some of the products that you sold in 2022 will be exactly the same products that you sell in 2023, but the problem they solve is different. And that is where the competitive advantage is. Once the economy tightens or uncertainty enters the marketplace, people care less about the product and they care more about the problem that it solves. They will choose you in the face of uncertainty because you understand them, not because they understand you. We call this strategy securing your base. And the idea is that you fundamentally understand the problems and challenges that your customers are facing, and then use your products and services to solve those problems. The company that we researched in the book was Procter & Gamble, company we are all familiar with, right? P&G, also known as P&G. But what a lot of people don't know about Procter & Gamble is that it was started in the late 1800s by Mr. Procter and Mr. Gamble. And they were going to marry sisters. And they had companies, one sold candles and one sold soap. And they competed for something that was a supply chain issue in the late 1800s, and that was animal fat. They both needed animal fat to make their products, and animal fat was hard to come by. So one night at the dining room table in Cincinnati, Ohio, they were fighting over the price of animal fat, when their future father-in-law heard them fighting and said, "Boys, why don't you quit competing and why don't you form a company?" And Procter & Gamble was born. Now, the very first product that they decided to take to market was soap. Now, I don't care what you sell. I can't imagine trying to get market share when what you sell in the marketplace is soap. I mean, it's about the most boring product out there, right? But Procter & Gamble was brilliant. They knew they weren't selling soap. If they were going to get any market share at all, they need to figure out what problem soap solved. Now, they could have sat in a room with all their marketing gurus and figured that out, but they decided to really go out and talk to customers, find from the people who would buy the product what they think isn't being answered in the marketplace. So they went out, they started talking to customers, and they said, "What do you like about soap? What do you not like about soap? If you could change one thing about soap, what would it be and why?" And what they learned was brilliant. People said, we like soap. We love soap. We're willing to buy soap. But there is a major problem with soap. See if you've ever had this problem. You're in the bathtub, life is good, you are lathering up, and the soap slips out of your hands, falls to the bottom of the bathtub, and you can't find it. And people told Procter & Gamble, we want a soap that floats. Procter & Gamble heard gold. They took a bar of soap, they shot air into it, and Ivory soap was born. And if any of you remember, Ivory soap was tagged a soap that floats. And by the end of the 1800s, Procter & Gamble was $1 million company. Not because they sold a better soap, not because they sold a cheaper soap, but because they sold a soap that solved the right problem. See, their competitors were selling soaps that smelled good, that came in different colors and different shapes, all nice, but it wasn't the problem that was on the mind of the customer. If you want to thrive in uncertainty, you need to understand what isn't being met with your product in the marketplace. In fact, get all your customer service people, get all your sales reps, and get them excited about customer complaints. Because when customers tell you what the problem is, that is where you are going to find the path to growth and profitability. Please note, Procter & Gamble didn't sell a soap that didn't sink. They took the exact language that the customer told them and put that on the product. People do business with you because you understand them, not because they understand you. Now, Procter & Gamble, just a brilliant company. In the 1970s, they had the very first 1-800 number. No business had ever had a 1-800 number. Now, imagine what this probably looked like. They went to the board of directors and said, we want you to approve paying for a phone number where we're going to invite our customers to call and complain. I mean, the board of directors must have thought they were crazy, right? But luckily, board of directors went for it. And if you remember anything about the 1970s, there was a very significant event that happened. Women went back to work. And as we went back to work, we lit up that 800 line, complaining about everything under the sun. It is too hard to work and feed my family. It is too hard to work and do the laundry. I can't work and clean my house. And Procter & Gamble just sat there taking notes and coming up with products and services that met the needs of what customers were looking for. In the time of uncertainty, what people want more than anything is to be heard and to be understood. So listen, 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 and reconfigure your products to solve those problems, and you are going to turn uncertainty into competitive advantage. All right. I got time for one more strategy. Now, I only am going to share 4 today, but I want you to have all 9. So go in there, get that QR code and listen to the video, get the worksheets, and just follow the methodology. All right. Now, you got to realize through no fault of your own, some of the things that you're doing right now, they're not going to work in a couple of weeks or a month or 6 months from now. Again, it's not your fault. They're not going to work because the marketplace is changing. There is more happening outside of your business that's shifting that can impact your ability to be successful than inside it. And if you're going to thrive in uncertainty, you need to remain productive, not busy. You have got to be as efficient and effective as possible. And the only way to do that is strategy number 8, to shed fast and keep moving. You got to understand what's working in your business and what isn't working in your business. And for this lesson, we turn to a little known company called Martin Guitars. If I have any musicians out there, anybody who loves music, you have definitely heard of Martin Guitars. Martin Guitars was started in the 1800s when Charles Frederick Martin opened his guitar shop in New York City. Now, he had learned the art of guitar making from his father, perfected it by studying from the best artists in the industry in Vienna. And the moment that he opened his guitar store, he was an immediate success. He found this niche selling to wholesalers and to teachers who loved and respected the quality of his guitars. And he immediately expanded to sell into the Northeast, the most populous part of the United States of America. After a few years of living in New York City, he grew tired of the hustle and bustle, and he moved his family to Nazareth, Pennsylvania. It felt more like home, more like Germany. But unfortunately, after just a few months of moving to Nazareth, Charles Frederick died, and the company passed to his 22-year-old son, Frank. Now, how many of you would have a little bit of heartburn, a little bit of anxiety if your business passed to a 22-year-old? But luckily for Charles Frederick, Frank not only had a vision for the company, but he had a mantra. And the mantra was, if it isn't working, fix it, and fix it fast. So when his father died, he asked himself three very important questions. What did my father do well? What do I need to be doing more of? That was easy. It was the quality of the guitars. He wasn't going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. His father had built such a reputation. That led to the second question. What isn't working? What do I need to stop doing? Well, while Charles Frederick was alive, most of the population was in the Northeast. But transportation had come to the United States, and people were moving across the U.S. as far as California. So he had to stop only selling in the Northeast. And that led to the last question. What do I need to be doing that I'm not doing that could take this business to the next level? That was easy. He needed to open shops across the United States in the most populated areas. And since immigration had come to the United States, he needed to move beyond guitars and start making ukuleles and start making mandolins, some of the instruments that these new immigrants would be looking for. Now, the tool you need to use in your business is similar to this. It's called a seeds, a weeds, and a needs. Every couple of months, reflect on what you did the last 2 months. Gather your team together and do this. What did we do well? What are our seeds? What do we need to double down on and do more of? What do we need to quit doing? Where did we waste time and energy in the last couple of months? And what do we need to be doing that we're not doing that could take this business to another level? This is going to keep you and your team incredibly efficient and incredibly productive. So there you have it. Those are the strategies. Those are the 4 I'm going to reveal today. You want to begin with that relentless vision, being so focused on where you are headed so that your business always finds the calm water. You are going to embrace the suck and condition yourself for change. You're not going to wait for change to happen. You're going to predict the changes that are coming in the marketplace, and you're going to grow your business from the inside out. You're going to secure your base and realize customers, businesses, they can find a product. What they can't find is somebody who can solve their problem. And last but not least, you're going to remain incredibly productive, not busy. You are going to shed fast and keep moving by doing the seeds, the weeds, and the needs. Listen, I get it. I am out there building a business just like you. And I can make a list of all the reasons you can be successful and all the reasons that you can't. And I have been doing this long enough to know that the reasons that you will never succeed will always be longer than the reasons that you will. But the only difference between you and successful people, the only difference is successful people focus on what they can control and they forget about the rest. Now, I think that is amazing. I just told you that the one thing you need that will guarantee you thrive in uncertainty, you 100% have control over. You control what you focus on. And I guarantee you, if you focus on these strategies, it is not only going to shift how you think, feel, and act around uncertainty, but it is going to turn all of this uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. Now, before I turn this back to Ed and we open it up for a little bit of Q&A, you have given me something that is so precious, and that is your time. And I want to make sure you get return on investment. So Ed is going to be sending you a copy of my slides, and he is going to be sending you a QR code. Just simply click on that QR code. You're going to get all the tools and strategies. You're going to get all 9 steps in the formula and a video of me talking about it. I'm also a big believer, build your network, change your life. If we are not connected, I would love to be connected on LinkedIn, or you can reach me at my website, valuespeaker.com. With that, Ed, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much for your time. Couple of questions that have come through. You mentioned at the very beginning of your presentation today the word anxiety, and I listened closely, and it came up several times, and others have talked about it as well. In your world travels and your work with companies you alluded to and other companies, you work with a lot of family businesses, obviously, but you also work with companies that may not be family owned. Do you see different levels of anxiety, whether it's a family business or not? So that's sort of part one of the question. And part two, we talk a lot about how family businesses tend to look at generations rather than quarterly results, especially those that are privately held versus publicly held. Can you talk a little bit about that word anxiety and what you see with family businesses that are more generationally focused as opposed to maybe those that are looking at the next 1, 2, 3, or 4 months ahead?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Number one is that with anxiety, I see anxiety levels are directly related to how well the leader is articulating the vision and whether the leader has a vision for the company. I think there is a little bit more in, I don't want to necessarily say it's family businesses, but when uncertainty hits, small to mid-sized businesses have a higher level of anxiety because they live a little closer to the bottom line sometimes than larger corporations do. But the more that you have a vision for the company and the more that you articulate that vision. I also have another great tool that you're going to get when you get the QR code here that helps you get rid of some of that anxiety, because I don't want you to deny the anxiety that you're feeling. I mean, I have things where I wake up at night, maybe the phone hasn't rung for a couple of weeks and you get fearful about something, or a supply chain gets hung up or something like that. You get a little bit fearful of what's coming through. But I've got a great tool to help you relieve some of that anxiety. Probably the biggest challenge, though, I think for family-owned businesses is that I don't see leaders as strongly articulating the vision as they need to. And anxiety at a CEO level, it's part of our job, and we manage it, we deal with it. Anxiety at every level of your organization is an infection that you cannot afford. And it's an infection that's pretty easy to get rid of, because if you can point people to a vision for the company, the more successful they're going to be. I think companies that don't have to focus on quarterly results are in a lot better position when uncertainty hits. I do believe strategy number 5 that I talked about is how to make money. In the middle, we go a lot more in depth into that in the book. It's going to help you manage the short-term revenue projections you've got to make, as well as the long-term growth that you have to. But you're in a little bit of a better position. I mean, just look at Southwest Airlines. I mean, I've never seen a better example of short-term results at the expense of long-term stability of the company. So I always say with the family businesses that I work with, I feel like your competitors are just hoping that you don't wake up and realize that if you put a methodology like this into place, you're going to be a real force to be reckoned with. One strategy I didn't talk about is strategy number 4, and that is the role that core values plays in this. And I don't know businesses better positioned, better run from a core value perspective than family-owned businesses.
Yeah, we've actually talked about that. We did a little series of webinars late in 2022 and then in January of this year, 23, on core values. So that's great. So when we share this information with our audience on the links and so forth that we send out, that step 4 will tie a lot back into what Dr. Adley Taylor and Donna Brighton spoke about with us a few months ago. A quote that you said that I wrote down, and I apologize for looking down at the notes because I want to get it right. I want to reread the quote to you and then ask you a quick question about it. And I love it. This resonated with me. That's why I wrote it down. People do business with us because people do business with you. See, I got it wrong already. People do business with you because you understand them, not because they understand you. Can you share with us a few ideas or techniques or strategies for how we can, obviously the best way to learn about someone is simply ask, and that might just be the wisdom that you share, but anything that you see in ways that we as family business leaders can really get to know more about our customers and really understand them so that they
Yeah.
will choose to do business with us?
Sure. I tell every team that I work with, as you head out into the year, whatever time you're listening to this webinar, choose next week to just send your team out, tell everybody to call their top 5 customers, top 5 prospects, and just say, we really want to understand what's going on in the company, in the industry right now. Don't try to sell them a single thing. Send everybody out with the same 5 questions to ask, and tell everybody to take notes, and then come back. And when you come back, you'll start to see themes. And from those themes, you'll start to see what the major issues is. It's exactly what Procter & Gamble did. It's what they did with their 800 number, is that they just listened to what are the major things that women are complaining about. You have to start to see the themes. And so by doing that, the other is pay a lot of attention to customer complaints. Shift how you think, feel, and act. When you think about Uber, or you think about Airbnb, or you think about Amazon, all they've done is take what we have all been complaining about in the marketplace and created a business out of it. And Uber never would have been created had taxi cabs secured their base, but they didn't listen. And so, what people choose and what they will always pay a lot of money for is the company that solves their problem.
Like the Ivory soap. We make soap and
Exactly.
floats. I loved that. That's
Yeah.
another one that I wrote down. Rather than coming up with what we believe should be our strategy and our slogan,
Yes.
let our customer come up with it for us.
Yeah, the biggest mistake you can make is to get in a room with high-end people and try to go, you think you know. Just listen. They'll tell you how do you think I came up with thriving in uncertainty? The only reason I came up with it is because everybody that I was talking to was like, oh, this uncertainty, we don't know what to do about it. And I heard it so much, I thought, well, I'm going to figure out what to do about it. And I'm going to write what they need to do. And that was the only reason I did it. This wasn't my brainchild. It was my clients talking to me.
Sure. So for those that don't know, a year or two ago, I had the opportunity to interview Meridith on my podcast, which you can also see links to the From the Heart podcast presented by the First Bank Center for Family Business on our website, first.bank/family business, where you can see all the podcasts and webinars that we've done, research, articles, recent results of a survey that we conducted across the country of family-owned companies. One of the questions I asked you, and I'm not going to ask you the same question again, Meridith, of what's in your heart, but I'm going to give you a slight variation of that question. Share with us as we wrap up today. It's obvious that you love what you're doing. It's obvious that you're passionate about this message. Can you just share a little bit about why? Why do you love delivering this message so much? Why do you love traveling the world and sharing this message of hope, of thriving in uncertain times? Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy for me. It's uncertainty it's amazing. If you're a big nerd like me, you did the research around it. It really shuts people down. I mean, the unknown is something that we are so fearful of. And yet, if you look down through history, some of our biggest tragedies, some of our biggest uncertain moments have led to our greatest advancements. And there is always success in the middle of uncertainty. And it fundamentally comes down to what we think and the actions that we take. And so I'm so passionate about it because I was so excited when I figured out this is a controllable. In the middle of everything you can't control, you can control something that is going to guarantee you come out at a much better spot than you're in. And I want to shift how people think about that. I want them to go from feeling powerless to feeling in control of the change that is coming in the marketplace. Listen, running a business, I always say, I think every politician should have to run one, and every teenager should have to go out and run one, because there's no better education. You don't understand until you run a business just how challenging it is to meet a payroll and to take care of people. You already have so many challenges in front of you. I want to make the path a little bit easier. And I feel like that's what I've done with the methodology.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Meridith. This message has been great. I know that many people watching today are already taking down notes and learning and have great tools that they can use to really gain that competitive advantage. Because again, we don't know what is around the corner. We've all attended economic forecasts over the last, including the First Bank economic forecast recently. that are telling us to prepare. We don't know how deep or how long this will be, but we do know that we're really in the midst of it. How could
Yeah.
we not be, given what's happened in the last 3 years? But these techniques and tools you've shared, and again, there are more, we will share those with our audience here on the link. As we post this webinar out on our website, we'll have the entire research and link that Meridith's done. Thanks again, my dear friend. It's so great to see you. Any last message for us before we wrap up? And then I'm going to just wrap here after you're finished with prepping our audience for what we have coming up next.
Just that I do believe, like Ed, I think that 2023 is going to be a challenging year. I fall on that side with those economists. I know it's all over the place, but I think but it doesn't mean you can't be your best year on record. And again, I really believe that this methodology comes down to what you focus on and what you believe. And so follow the strategies and it will get you there.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Meridith. This has been great. So just as a reminder, please make plans to join us for our March webinar for the Center for Family-Owned Businesses here at First Bank on Tuesday, March 21st, 2023 from 2 to 3 Central or noon to 1 Pacific. The topic of our workshop or our webinar will be, should they stay or should they go? Rethinking how to prepare next generation family business leaders. We'll be discussing the involvement of next gen members in a family business as significant contributors to the continuity and success of the family business. And this will be presented by two of my dear academic colleagues that I've met during the years that I've been working with family-owned companies at the university level. Dr. Carol Whitmire, who's the interim dean of the St. John Fisher College and also a fellow at Cornell Family for the Cornell Family Business Program, and Dr. Isabel Botero of the University of Louisville College of Business. That should be a really great discussion, the results of some research that they've done on involvement in the family business, and should we teach our next gen to go outside and get an education and work for other companies before they come into the business. I think you'll really enjoy that discussion. I'd like to again thank you all for joining us today, and again a special thank you to Meridith for this wonderful session. This and all of our webinars are permanently stored on our website, again at first.bank/family business. Articles, research, survey results, webinars, podcasts, you name it, lots of different ideas and techniques and tools for your family business. With that, one last thank you to Meridith. Thank you to Brian Colburn here in our studios in Irvine, California at Sitch Radio. Have a great day, and we will see you again in March. Thank you.